Thank you very much, madam, for a very interesting take. First, I think I should request Rishan never to ask a question before me because he asked part of the question that I was going to ask you. So that part has already been addressed. My concern is you calling this phenomenon of a nexus of extortion between different entities. You're calling it neo-feudalism. Now you've in detail you've given the features of the classical feudalism, and you've tried to compare this phenomenon with that classical feudalism. One feature which you've already, in your answer to Zishan's question, you've already touched upon is the land ownership. And another feature is social hierarchy. It falls in line with your take and calling this phenomenon as neo-feudalism. But one feature which I cannot understand how, in the absence of serfdom, one, and secondly, agrarian economy. How can this phenomenon be called neo-feudalism? Because serfdom and agrarian economy, they were integral to that phenomenon which we know as classical feudalism. Uh, in fact, the break from feudalism, or the shift from feudalism to capitalist economy, was the shift from serfdom to wage labor. So how can you different? It can be called so many things like neocon. Con is not for conservative. Con is for fraud here. It can be called neo-developmentalism or anything, but I find it hard to digest it being called neo-feudalism. That is my question, please. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very interesting question, and I think everyone, whenever I shared this concept, this came up many times. You are very much right. That see, we have to think about the fact, and one of my inspiration was, or you can say, the idea was that we think. So there are two political economy or radical political economy thoughts on these two mode of productions that we have. One is feudalism and one is capitalism. Many people would argue that what I have just termed neo-feudalism could be capitalism, a new form of capitalism as well. However, the relationship between the people and the state. And as I already mentioned, that the reason that I had to connect it with neo-feudalism and not with capitalism is because, in theory, capitalism says that there will be no hierarchies, that will provide enough space or opportunity for class upward mobility. It will be a fair system where everybody can compete based on their merit and all of that. And I can see, and my data was also very much suggestive of the fact that none of this exists in Pakistan at the moment. The few features which were very much common in the feudalism and neo-feudalism, as I spoke about, land is one. The difference was that we have always seen feudal lords are the men living in a rural setting, living in a rural area, occupying a lot of land, and asserting their power and hierarchy through exploitative and extractive means. But we have never imagined real estate developers in the same way, or for example, Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates in the same way. Because if we look at them, and if we look at Malik Riaz, for example, for the Bahria Town Karachi project, if he is occupying a land as big as Manhattan, New York, and he has acquired this land through patron-client relationships, through exploiting the existing mechanisms by bypassing many political and political and legal frameworks and assessments and all of that, and was successful in doing that and has the impunity of doing that. Why Malik Riaz cannot be considered a feudal of urban cities as well? why his land acquisition, the coercive force that he asserted or his project is asserting, the state machinery that is being used to bulldoze houses of people, of indigenous communities, and him creating a state within a state. This is a very important aspect that I was not able to include in this presentation. That the idea that these real estate neo-feudalistic spaces, they are creating a state within a state. Bahria town, Karachi provides you security. It provides you electricity separately. It provides you water as well. These are all the services that a state should be providing to its citizens anyway. But anyone who is living there has to pay extra. And not only this, there is this like a gas pipeline and a water pipeline. Actually, they don't have water right now, but there is a water pipeline that is now being directed, which is a huge need of the main Karachi, is now being directed to Bahria town, where very few people are living compared to the like the massive population living in the main downtown Karachi. All these phenomena, all these questions are raising, and I wanted to look at Malik Riaz or the Bahria town or owner of any real estate developing company or project as also a feudal. So this was a lens, a different lens to apply. So this was my idea. And you rightly said that the serfs and all of that is still there, but you have to also look at the relationships. For example, in the feudalism, people could work on the fields and they could have some money at the end of the day, or some input that they would receive from their feudal lord. This land in a country like Pakistan, where we are going to actually run out of enough land to accommodate the growing population, which is actually mostly the poor population, these massive land assembly by him, these big roads, these grand masjids, all this chunk that is actually being wasted. All this is for the grandeur, for the ego of this one person, or one organization. For what this is all happening? The very grandeur of these projects is also creating this very image of feudalistic estates, the big lawns, the beautiful houses, the gates, the ticketing, the fencing, to keep the poor, the barbaric, according to them, the wild outside these four walls. So this is the power dynamic and power hierarchies that I try to explore. And this was my reasoning and also the data that I collected. But thank you so very much. It's a very interesting question, and I think another thesis should be conducted on that.
Thank you, ma'am.